Bonjour mes canards. I find myself once again bicycling home after a very late night poetry reading. This time again, Paris lit up, culture rapide. It's my favorite. It's the first place I ever read poetry in France, actually. Last summer when I was in the city, it was the first open mic that I'd heard of. So I went, and I was so shy and nervous, I was worried that I missed it. As it turns out, the featured poet for that evening had canceled last minute, so I introduced myself to the host, Youth Poet Laureate of Los Angeles and all, and I ended up being the accidental feature of the evening. And tonight, July 27th, I was also the feature at Paris Lit Up. It was a little more planned out and organized than last summer, and you can have a fresh, hot taste of Parisian Anglophone culture right now while I bicycle home. Fantastic. Before I get started, I just want to say that I don't care if you go to the restroom while I'm reading, but if you use that goddamn noisy hand dryer, I'll murder you. Je vais vous tuer. You understand? Okay. My name is Rhiannon mcgavin. I'm from Los Angeles. Last year I was the Youth Poet Laureate of Los Angeles. It was a great honor. And as part of that, I had a book published. I have some exceptionally sweaty copies with me if you'd like one. Yes. And to start off, I'm going to read a poem. I'm an English major, like I'm studying literature at UCLA, but I always forget the word for the sort of poem that's written about a painting. Ekphrasis. Yeah. Yes. So anyway, this poem is about the work of Gustav Klimt, but also about the work of Henry Gross, who was one of the lesser-known ghetto photographers. And his photographs of the ghettos were so efficient and served as such good proof that they were actually used as evidence during the Nuremberg trials. But along with all the soldiers and brutality that he captured, he also found very sweet moments of domesticity and tenderness. And he has a picture of two teenagers making out in the bushes. And if you put it right next to the kiss by Gustav Klimt, it looks like a mirror image. So this poem is called First Base Gold, and it's about making out in secret corners of religious institutions. My songs a stain, beach salt up the spine, highlighter waltzing through divine verse, lemon-curd thumbprints from last week's pancakes. The book yawns on the grass now, green scratches to a violin beat while you're talking to the prophets because you, at the back of the Hebrew classroom, you swore that there was more scripture in my grades. Your hair flakes into remnants of fire. We are constructing the Ringstrauss on our American passports, and Gustav trails his brush from rooftop to cobblestone, his smock marked with espresso and violet fragrance. I heard he painted his subjects totally naked before drawing on clothes. And my great aunt's necklace gets caught in your collar, and the kids dancing in museums while the howling city elders made philosophy, medicine, and jurisprudence put gym shirts on and go home early. Yet Gustav was the sort of man with whipped cream for breakfast, sweet tooth sharp, breaking mosaics like bread with his neighbors. They knocked down the boundary walls to build second society in sacred spring, and Gustav is swirling 8 different types of gold leaf in his Manischewitz shot. I'm looking carefully at his gendarmes, their crooked fingers and noses, and how thick hair captures candles so glorious. Can't he frame my mirrors too? And I think I hear my cousin calling. And those girls, celestial, winding to us, improbable, they must have walked boulevards alongside the men with swinging red hands as welcome flags, the antimony, vermilion, and nouveau whiplash against uniformed wolves who returned sketches to ash with too much poison for charcoal to draw out the Judiths, Salomes, and Shulamites covered in caves, baptized, heads shaved, Mendel's fists locked around his camera on the death march, and perhaps the greatest design was the need for documentation, to keep pencils in throat, to drag nails through cement. But those Nazis stayed dead, and Henrique and Stefania are digging up what they buried in woods, the negatives hidden in his coat as she watched for guards. Their wedding echoes through crushed windows. All my love for a slingshot on the projector slide. I see evidence of honeycomb preserved. My arm around your neck buried with a slow shutter. There's never been a better place to kiss than circled by lilies, the sunflower swallowing lead, and we, at the back of the Hebrew classroom, we do not know their names, but your eyelashes are so long that they touch my cheeks when we are close enough, and I have never heard the mourner's prayer. My degenerate, shall we rend our clothes for joy? What a blessing to see myself in brownest of brown eyes, better than wine. Here we stand 3 hours to a full moon. Here we lie at the bottom of the century. I mean on top. I mean picture to picture, kiss to kiss, you and me in the synagogue garden, full square, soaked in first base gold.
All right.
Did you guys know that Coco Chanel was a Nazi? She like super was. This poem is called Chanel number 1941. Little black dress, dark as winter camp cloud. Her steps clink like coins do in an eagle's beak. Heels for scalpels and it scrapes at the hook. She sells silk bandages too. Don't look at the cigarette holder. Just know that she smokes like a chimney. Winks with medals off an occupied chest. Which flag held the sky where those diamonds fell? What leather, what calf torn, whose rings melted for a chain? Even baby teeth look like pearls from a distance. Is it clean if the soap is made from a body? Sweet almond silage, the bottle reads in Westminster and French. Apply the Zyklon to pulse points and rub. Wet lip shines, fades to rust, cracks, but no one does red like Coco. Mom pats potatoes from one hand to the other, scent on her wrists and neck, humming. A lot of the times after I read these poems, people will come up to me afterwards and ask if I'm Jewish. I just super love the Holocaust. I don't know. No, why would I read this shit if I wasn't? No, I mean, like, I can always spot other blonde Jewesses in the crowd, right? Or like off-brand Barbies. It makes it simple. Okay, I'm gonna read something controversial now. So people have said to me a lot in the last year that now more than ever poetry is the most important thing for American politics, and I disagree with this for a lot of reasons. Because it only works if you assume that poetry is only important when something bad is happening, but poetry is always important. It also assumes that the situation with American politics came out of absolutely nowhere and hasn't been building for many, many years. It assumes that poetry is, you know, people don't say poets are the most important thing, they say poetry, and that privileges the product over the producer, right? And also the people who tend to tell me that poetry is the most important thing right now, more than ever, they tend to be the people who do not write poetry themselves and do nothing to make the world more welcoming for poets or art. I think their main occupation is just telling people that poetry is important now more than ever. So this poem is called Making Great Art, and it's dedicated to all of them.
Yeah, all right.
Now, more than ever, specifically us at this darling political moment, this heartening social juncture that unveils its saturated horrors as a rose, no, a narcissus, no, a lobster claw pairs away to present to us with our binocular insight, with antiseptic and butter, our sacred duty which we have prepared for, though the civic situation is worse than anything we, specifically, could have imagined, our salient role in exhuming whatever lies profound at the crossroads. Such a weighted homage, such a doting honor to live, yes, us living during this deeply interesting era to birth the movements we will be remembered for, that which will bear clarity as the sun, no, a magnifying glass, no, a stream of ants, although we do wish there was more quiet to write by, although the work The all-consumed travail practically writes itself now more than ever now than the instances when people who were not us were afraid. But since none of the bodies were our wives and children, we modeled a collage from the mortuary forms. Of course, how wise are we to lean off the shore of danger with black milk lapping at our heels, so that finally all that we struggled against has been made corporeal, and we can shake its wet hand for the position. Finally, the head rolls across our stage to spit the greatest poem of all time in a froth. I love being back in Paris. It's wonderful. I think that one of my favorite things about Paris is all the dead animals in the street, because it really reminds me of home.
Where is home?
Los Angeles. We have roadkill there also. Okay.
Cultural bridges.
This poem is called The Creeps. Yesterday, we went hiking, and I told you how my mother's best friend was murdered when they were a few years older than us. Her ex choked her and got 2 years because the jury wasn't allowed to know he had a history of abuse. This is no premonition. When the late August flies tried to lick the sweat from my eyelashes, you blew them away with quick breaths, one hand on my jaw to keep me still. But it's why I'm afraid of men with hands too big for sympathy, and the wood grown to protect them, for a death with no penance. Because yesterday, I knew the trees near your house had never clapped with a gavel, and tensed anyway.
Thank you.
Okay. This is the last poem for the first round, I do believe. She's coming back. Yeah. This is called Next Year in Paris. So for some holidays we say next year in Jerusalem, but not Jerusalem like the actual place. It's more of an idea. Like it just gets better the more things that are bad. So next year in Paris, I see the city like a film over my eyes every time I blink, and this is how I know that I am wicked, but there's always laundry. I will enunciate through a bar of soap, say hello and thank you, blink away plastic wrap and terror, explain the 8 a.m. sky breaches of the countryside, but it won't matter. Next year, every machine of war becomes a greenhouse. The halls of law are filled with kind people, just like back home. I bicycle to bed late with the safety to be foolish and lost any place, fold prayers into any right wall, buy charms from these streets for myself and my mother to carry in my state of a knapsack. My rib knocks with sweet thuds. I can open and close my chest like shutters, follow the sermons as newspaper boats down the storm drain. I find the last exit visas and fly them like kites off the bridge railings. Whatever birthright there is to a dress and combed hair, cool and clean as snow, all the world is safe next year. Thank you.
Oh, God.
Boys and girls, we're going to have a break, but because we've heard how amazing Rhiannon is, not only is she going to come back in the second round, which is going to be about 15-20 minutes time, also she's very kindly just offered to accept money in exchange for you taking off some heavyweight photos.
Off the airline.
So though you have your books with you.
I do, they're very sweaty.
And
authentic.
even more,
It's
they're like
authentic.
covered in the sweat of
I ran. Today's fact is that I know 2 different poets who got their bags stolen in the same week in this city. Their wallets, all of the books that they were trying to sell, basically everything except their passports. So you can bet that I'm being very careful when I walk around with my bag of goods. Okay, later nerds.